My name is Caio Ferreira. I'm 27 years old and I have a YouTube channel called Occult Slit. It may seem like an exaggeration, but this channel is all I have. It started as a stupid idea among college friends, going to abandoned places, hunting ghosts, inventing theories. At first it was just fun, then it became a way to survive. When I lost my job in 2020, the channel was the only thing that gave me a return. Not just financial, but emotional. It was the only place where I felt seen, where my voice seemed to matter. I became obsessed with authenticity. The more real the fear, the more views. I spent the night in a disused mental hospital, dove into a centuries-old cistern with rumors of rituals, and was even followed by paranoid homeless people who thought I was from the government. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared me for what I found in Barreira Velha. Barreira Velha is a city in the interior of Espírito Santo, practically forgotten by time. The center is a jumble of old houses and closed shops. The railroad, which once gave life to the place, was deactivated decades ago. It was precisely there that I learned about the legend of the 317 train. An anonymous subscriber sent me a message. If you want something that was never actually recorded, go to Barreira Velha. The train still passes, but no one who gets on it returns. I laughed, of course. I thought it was just another attempt at fan fiction, but there was an attachment. A blurry black and white photo of an old train stopped in the middle of the fog, the rusty tracks swallowed by the bush. I don't know why. I took it seriously. Maybe it was the tone of the message, or the look on the driver's face in the photo. Even though it wasn't clear, there was something deeply wrong with him, with empty eyes or the absence of them. I decided to investigate. That was what my channel needed. Something new, something disturbing, and I confess, I needed to feel fear again. Real fear. I arrived in Barreira Velha on a cloudy Thursday, at the end of May. The sky always seemed about to fall, but it never did. The air was thick, as if we were breathing in a memory too old to be healthy. I went straight to the only hotel in town, which looked more like a roadside inn. The attendant was a small gentleman with light eyes and a thin white beard. When I mentioned the train, he simply froze. Then he asked me, "Are you going to try recording this?" I confirmed with a smile. He didn't answer anything. He just handed me the room key and said, "If you hear a whistle in the middle of the night, don't open the window." That same afternoon, I went to the old train station. The place was in ruins, surrounded by tall vegetation. Rust-covered trails cut through the undergrowth, disappearing into the horizon. The station building's facade was chipped, and faded graffiti covered parts of the walls. But there was something that caught my attention. A clock with a hand still attached to the tower stopped at exactly 3:17. I walked in with my camera in hand, narrating everything for the video. The environment was strange. The echo of my own footsteps seemed delayed, as if the sound took too long to bounce off the walls and return. On the floor I found old tickets, yellowed papers, and pieces of railway uniforms. A fallen sign behind. The service desk had the inscription, "Final Destination, Station 9. There was no Station 9 on the maps I consulted. I spent the day exploring the surrounding area. I told the story on camera, using the drone to capture images of the zigzagging tracks and the thicket that seemed to swallow everything. I spoke to some locals. Few wanted to talk. Those who did said that the train had appeared from time to time since the 1970s. Never more than one night in a row, always at the same time, 3:17 in the morning, and always silent. No engine noise, no steam, just the whistle, a high-pitched, long sound that didn't seem to come from anywhere in particular. I went back to the hotel and started reviewing the recordings. Nothing strange except for a constant background noise in all the captures made at the station, a kind of buzzing, as if something was vibrating inside the walls. At midnight, I packed my backpack, thermal camera, flashlights, power banks, ham radio, my backup drone, and of course my main camera. I left for the station. The sky was clear now. Complete silence reigned, the kind of silence that screams in your ear, that seems to be waiting for something to happen. I set up my tripod between the tracks, aiming at where the train was supposed to appear. I turned on all the cameras and waited. At 3:15 a.m., the wind stopped. Literally. The leaves on the branches, the tall grass, nothing moved. It was as if someone had pressed pause on the world. I looked at the clock, 3:16. I grabbed the flashlight. My heart was racing, but it wasn't from fear yet. It was the adrenaline of anticipation. I wanted to capture everything. Every sound, every shadow. I wanted to show the world that the 317 train was not just another urban legend. So I listened, a whistle, but no ordinary sound. It echoed right through my skull. My eyes instantly watered and my teeth ground together as if they were going to break. The flashlight flickered. The air changed. It began to smell like burning iron and something wet, like damp cloth that had been stored for decades. The clock in the tower rang once, 3:17. And there, where before there was only mist, a beam of light appeared between the trees. The train appeared, not with the clang of iron on rails, but sliding, as if the ground no longer existed. A long black body, covered in moss and raw rust, snaked along the tracks like a forgotten memory. The windows were open but all dark, and in front, driving the engine, a figure stood erect, motionless. An old torn uniform, a conductor's hat, and no face. Just smooth, taut skin where the eyes should be. I pointed the camera. The lens shook. The image was out of focus, even though everything was still. I couldn't focus on the driver. Every time I tried, my stomach turned. It was like trying to look into a nightmare. Then I heard a voice, but not with the ears. It was inside the head. Next station. Beyond. My body froze. The door of one of the carriages opened with a loud click. I approached, not because I wanted to, but because something inside me was pulling me. The camera fell out of his hand. The last thing I remember before losing track of time was putting my foot on the first step of the stairs. And then, darkness. When I woke up, the sun was already starting to rise. I was lying in the middle of the tracks. My face was covered in dried blood and my watch was no longer working. The cameras were intact, but all turned off. The battery was 100%, but nothing had been recorded after 3:17 a.m. I staggered back to the hotel. I slept for almost 18 hours straight. The next day, I started having dreams, metallic sounds, dark wagons, a voice that repeated my name, always in the same tone. Caio. Bored. I know I didn't dream that, and I know that somehow I was in there, but what is that place, and why do I feel like part of me hasn't come back yet? No matter how much I tried to convince myself that it was all just an exaggerated performance of my mind, the result of isolation, darkness, and the expectation of recording something scary, there was something in that tunnel that told me otherwise. It wasn't just fear. It was a cold, almost instinctive certainty that I had crossed a line, and that something had crossed it with me. Ever since that first night on the railroad, my body no longer seemed to be working properly. Sleeping became an impossible task. I would lie down, but I would feel as if trains were passing beneath my bed. The mattress would vibrate subtly, and sometimes when I closed my eyes, I would hear the metallic sound of the iron wheels sliding on the tracks. Each time, the time was the same, 3:17 a.m. I tried to continue with the channel, posting cuts of the original video. The audience, of course, went wild. Comments popped up asking if the train was real, if the driver was an actor, if I had manipulated the video with AI. Some asked me to go back there and spend the night inside the carriage. Others said I should quit while there was still time. But the video exploded. The algorithm embraced the narrative. Sponsors who had previously ignored me began to respond. The channel was finally growing, and I was falling apart inside. Something was wrong. Very wrong. The next night, I tried to do a live on the channel. I thought that maybe if I shared it in real time with the public, it would help me stay in control, or at least have some anchor in reality. I prepared everything. Camera on a tripod, simple lighting, the tunnel as a background. I started broadcasting at 10 p.m. For almost 3 hours, I interacted with the chat, told behind-the-scenes stories about the original filming, and talked about how to find the location. The viewers wanted more. They asked me to go back to the railroad section. Even with the cold piercing through my clothes, I went. And then, at 3:17 a.m., the track started shaking again. This time, however, the train didn't appear in the distance, like the first time. It appeared suddenly as if it had emerged from the darkness. The live camera cut to static. The signal disappeared. But I saw. I don't know how to explain it. It was as if the train had torn through space, bending reality around it. He didn't seem to occupy the same physical space as me, but he was still there. Solid, immense, breathing dark smoke through a chimney that swirled like a spiral. And he stopped, right in front of me. The door of one of the carriages opened. From inside, there was no smoke, but a thick, heavy mist that ran down the steps and touched the floor like liquid fingers. The light inside was greenish, like a dead forest, and then he appeared. The driver. His feet didn't touch the ground. Her skin was pale and thin like wet paper. It was in uniform but misshapen, covered in algae, rust and salt marks. His face was a blur with no eyes, no nose, just a vertical mouth, sewn together with pulsating wires. Even without seeing, he stared at me. He raised his hand and pointed at me. And then he spoke. Or perhaps he thought inside my mind. "You have boarded." I took a step back, stumbling. I wanted to run, but my legs wouldn't respond. My entire body vibrated at a different frequency, as if I was already on that train even though I hadn't gotten on. "Now there is a place for you," I screamed. I threw the phone at him and ran. I ran across the tracks, my heart pounding, my throat dry, my whole body throbbing with fear. Behind me, the sound of wheels moving without tracks, as if the train were sliding behind me along the ground itself. When I got back to the car, it wouldn't start. The battery had died, and not just the cars. My power bank, my laptop, all my cameras, even my wristwatch. Everything was dead, as if time itself had stopped. I spent the rest of the night walking to a gas station. I tried to call a taxi, but my cell phone still had no signal. I hitched a ride with a truck driver who dropped me off almost 20 kilometers from my house. I arrived dirty, feverish, with my clothes smelling of sea air and rust. The next morning I found something horrible. On my computer there was a new folder called Station. I didn't create it. It wasn't there before. Inside were videos, files I'd never recorded. They showed footage of the live broadcast, but from a different angle, as if someone were watching me from above, from the train's vantage point. In one of them, I was standing still looking at the conductor but with coal-black eyes. Behind me, shadows moved, and there were passengers on the train, hundreds of them, all of them motionless, all of them with the same blank expression. And then, in one of the videos, I myself appeared, inside the wagon, sitting, staring at the camera with the same eyeless face as the conductor. That wasn't me anymore. I thought about running away, leaving everything behind, deleting the channel, moving to another city, giving up the internet. But the fear didn't just come from what I saw. It came from within, as if the train was taking me, piece by piece. I forgot names. I dreamed about tracks. I could smell the steam even in the middle of the supermarket. I woke up on the floor with grease marks on my arms. Then I discovered something even more disturbing. Scouring obscure forums on the deep web, I found similar accounts. People who had heard the whistle at 3:17 a.m., people who had seen the train. Few survived long enough to tell the story. Most disappeared. Some wrote confusing messages on old forums, as if they were being pulled by something. One left a sentence: "When the conductor points, you are already inside." I spent weeks without sleeping. I locked doors, covered mirrors, disconnected everything, but nothing stopped it. The train didn't need a railroad. It traveled between sound and thought. Last night I dreamed that I was at the bottom of a flooded station. The walls were dripping with rust and mud. I walked between abandoned benches, and in the background a broken sign flashed, "Platform 0. There the driver was waiting for me. I woke up with my hands covered in mud. My feet were wet, and on the bed was a note, on old, oil-stained paper: "Train, 3:17. Boarding immediately, no return. It's 3:14 now. I'm here writing because maybe someone will read it, maybe you. Maybe it will serve as a warning. Don't go to the railroad, don't listen to the whistle. And if you hear footsteps behind you after midnight, don't look, because once you see the conductor, he never stops seeing you."